Every tea explained.
Tea is technically one of the simplest things you can make. Hot water and a plant. That's it. And yet somehow that one basic idea splintered into thousands of distinct teas across dozens of cultures, each with its own harvesting rules, processing techniques, and rituals built entirely around a cup of leaves steeped in water. Here's the thing more people should just admit. Tea is not just a caffeine delivery system or something you drink when you're trying to avoid coffee. It's one of the most quietly sophisticated categories of food and drink humans have ever developed, and the people who take the time to actually explore different teas instead of grabbing the same bland bag every morning are tapping into thousands of years of genuinely careful craft. Excited? Let's get into it. Green tea. Green tea is, in a very real sense, the least processed of all the true teas, meaning it comes from the same plant, Camellia sinensis, as black tea and oolong, but skips the oxidation step almost entirely. Right after the leaves are picked, they're either pan-fired, steamed, or baked almost immediately, which halts the natural enzymatic browning process and locks in that fresh, grassy, vegetal flavor, along with the leaf's original green color. That minimal processing is exactly why green tea holds on to such a high concentration of compounds called catechins, a type of antioxidant that starts breaking down the moment oxidation begins. The most studied of these catechins is epigallocatechin gallate, usually shortened to EGCG, which researchers have linked to reduced cellular damage from free radicals, the unstable molecules that build up in the body over time and are associated with aging and various chronic diseases. Because green tea is picked young and processed gently, it typically retains far more of these catechins than teas that go through longer oxidation, which is part of why it's consistently held up as one of the most antioxidant-dense beverages a person can drink daily. Matcha. Matcha takes the entire idea of green tea and pushes it to its most concentrated extreme. Instead of steeping loose leaves and discarding them, matcha is made by grinding specially grown shade-covered tea leaves into an extremely fine powder, which is then whisked directly into hot water so you end up consuming the entire leaf rather than just an infusion of it. That shading process, where the tea plants are covered for several weeks before harvest, is a deliberate technique that forces the plant to produce more chlorophyll and more of those same catechin antioxidants as it strains for sunlight, which is exactly why matcha typically tests far higher in antioxidant concentration than a standard cup of steeped green tea. Because you're drinking the whole ground leaf instead of just water that leaves pass through, you're getting a meaningfully larger dose of EGCG and other polyphenols per cup, along with a noticeably stronger, more sustained energy lift, since matcha also delivers more caffeine than typical green tea along with an amino acid called L-theanine, which is believed to smooth out that caffeine hit into something calmer and less jittery. The ceremonial tradition around matcha in Japan, involving a bamboo whisk, a specific whisking motion, and a small ceramic bowl, developed over centuries, partly through Zen Buddhist monks who used the ritual itself as a form of focused meditation. Yerba mate. Yerba mate isn't technically a true tea at all, since it doesn't come from the Camellia sinensis plant, but it belongs firmly in this conversation because of how deeply it's woven into daily ritual across South America, particularly in Argentina, Uruguay, Paraguay, and southern Brazil. It's brewed from the dried ground leaves and twigs of the yerba mate tree, a species native to South American rainforests, and traditionally sipped through a metal straw called a bombilla out of a hollowed gourd that's passed communally between friends and family. Like green tea and matcha, yerba mate is loaded with its own set of powerful antioxidant compounds, including chlorogenic acid and a range of polyphenols that studies have suggested may help fight oxidative stress in the body at levels comparable to, and by some measurements even exceeding, what you'd find in green tea. It also naturally contains caffeine along with two related stimulant compounds, theobromine and theophylline, the same family of compounds found in chocolate and certain asthma medications, which together are often credited for yerba mate's smoother, more even energy boost compared to the sharper spikes some people get from coffee. In much of South America, sharing a gourd of mate isn't just about the drink itself. It's a genuine social custom, with specific etiquette around who fills it, who drinks first, and how long you're expected to linger before passing it along. Black tea. Black tea is the most oxidized of all the major tea categories, And that heavy oxidation is exactly what gives it its deep reddish-brown color and its bold, robust, sometimes malty flavor. After picking, the leaves are rolled or crushed to break open their cell walls, which exposes enzymes to oxygen and kicks off a browning reaction very similar to what happens when you cut open an apple and leave it sitting out. That process is allowed to run its full course for black tea, unlike green tea where it's stopped almost immediately, which transforms most of those bright catechins into a different set of compounds called theaflavins and theorubigens. These compounds still carry antioxidant properties, just a different profile than green teas, and they're responsible for black tea's characteristically brisk, sometimes slightly astringent bite. Black tea also tends to carry the highest caffeine content among true teas, which is part of why it became the backbone of British and Irish tea culture, strong enough to stand up to a splash of milk without losing its character entirely. Oolong. Oolong sits in the wide, fascinating middle ground between green and black tea, partially oxidized anywhere from 10 to 80% depending on the specific style, which gives it an enormous range of possible flavors from light and floral all the way to dark and almost coffee-like. Taiwan and China's Fujian province are considered the traditional homelands of oolong, and the leaves are often rolled into tight little balls or twisted into long curls, a shape that slowly unfurls as the tea steeps and allows for multiple infusions from the same leaves, sometimes 5 or 6 steepings before the flavor finally fades. Because the oxidation level is so variable, oolong doesn't fit neatly into a single flavor category the way green or black tea does, and tasting a lightly oxidized oolong next to a heavily roasted one can feel like drinking 2 entirely different beverages that just happen to share a name. White tea. White tea is often described as the least processed tea of all, even more minimally handled than green tea, made from young buds and leaves that are simply withered and dried with almost no rolling, shaping, or firing involved. Its name actually comes from the fine, silvery white hairs that cover the youngest tea buds before they open, most visible in the prize style called silver needle, which uses only the unopened buds themselves. Because the leaves go through so little processing, white tea tends to have an extremely delicate, subtly sweet flavor with very low caffeine content compared to other true teas, and some research suggests it may retain catechin levels close to green teas since the leaves spend so little time exposed to conditions that would trigger oxidation. Pu'era. Pu'era is where tea starts to resemble something closer to wine or cheese, a tea that's deliberately fermented and aged, sometimes for decades, with older cakes of compressed pu'era commanding serious money among collectors, in the same way a vintage bottle might. It originates from Yunnan province in China, and it comes in 2 distinct styles: raw pu'er, which ages naturally and slowly over years through exposure to ambient microbes, and ripe pu'er, which undergoes an accelerated fermentation process developed in the 1970s to mimic decades of aging in just a matter of months. The tea is traditionally pressed into dense, flat discs called cakes for storage and aging, and that slow microbial fermentation gives pu'er its distinctive, earthy, almost woody flavor that genuinely deepens and mellows the longer it's left to sit. Chai. Chai in most of the English-speaking world has come to mean a specific spiced, milky black tea drink, though the word itself simply means tea in Hindi, borrowed originally from the Chinese word cha. What's typically called chai outside of South Asia is a shortened version of masala chai, meaning spiced tea, a black tea base simmered with a blend of warming spices that usually includes cardamom, cinnamon, ginger, cloves, and black pepper, then finished with milk and sugar. There's no single fixed recipe, since masala chai varies significantly by region, family, and even by street vendor across India, but the core idea of infusing black tea with a bold spice blend and simmering it directly in milk, rather than just adding milk afterward, is what gives chai its distinctly rich, warming character. Earl Grey. Earl Grey isn't a type of tea plant or processing style at all. It's a flavored black tea, traditionally scented with oil extracted from the rind of bergamot, a citrus fruit that looks similar to a small orange but tastes closer to a cross between lemon and grapefruit. The tea is named after Charles Grey, the second Earl Grey and a British Prime Minister in the 1830s, though the exact story of how the blend came to bear his name is murky, with competing legends involving a diplomatic gift from China and a recipe supposedly created to offset the taste of local well water at his estate. Regardless of the origin story, the bright, slightly floral citrus note from bergamot oil layered over a robust black tea base became one of the most recognizable flavored teas in the world, eventually inspiring variations like London Fog, which blends Earl Grey with steamed milk and vanilla. Rooibos. Rooibos, like yerba mate, isn't a true tea botanically speaking, since it's made from the leaves of a shrub called Aspalathus linearis that grows almost exclusively in South Africa's Cedarburg region. What makes rooibos genuinely unusual is that it's naturally caffeine-free, making it one of the few herbal infusions that still delivers a deep reddish color and a rich, slightly sweet, almost nutty flavor without any stimulant effect at all. Traditional rooibos is oxidized similarly to black tea, turning the naturally green leaves a deep amber red, while a less common version called green rooibos skips that oxidation step and results in a lighter, grassier flavor. South Africa has an official appellation protecting the name, meaning true rooibos, much like champagne or Parmigiano Reggiano, can only legally be grown in that specific region of the country. Jasmine tea. Jasmine tea is technically a scenting process applied to a base tea, most commonly green tea, though white and oolong bases exist too, where dried tea leaves are layered together with freshly picked jasmine blossoms over multiple nights, allowing the tea to absorb the flower's fragrance as the blossoms open in the cool evening air. This scenting process, refined in China over centuries and closely associated with the city of Fuzhou in Fujian province, is remarkably labor-intensive, sometimes requiring the tea to be layered with fresh blossoms 5, 6, or even more times to build up a deep enough floral aroma. The jasmine flowers themselves are almost always removed before the tea is sold, meaning the tea itself, not any leftover petals, carries the entire fragrance, which is why high-quality jasmine tea should smell intensely floral, even though there's rarely any visible flower left in the tin. Hibiscus and herbal infusions. Hibiscus tea, brewed from the dried calyces of the hibiscus flower, produces a strikingly tart, deep red infusion that's popular across the Middle East, West Africa, and Latin America under regional names like Carcade and Jamaica. Because it contains no actual tea leaves at all, hibiscus falls into the broader category of herbal infusions, technically called tisanes, a category that also includes chamomile, made from dried daisy-like flower heads and prized for its mild, apple-like sweetness and calming reputation, and peppermint tea, brewed from the leaves of the peppermint plant and known for its sharp, cooling menthol character. None of these herbal infusions come from Camellia sinensis, and none contain caffeine, which is exactly why they've become the go-to choice for anyone looking for the ritual and warmth of a tea without the stimulant effect. Ginger tea. Ginger tea, made simply by steeping fresh or dried ginger root in hot water, has one of the longest continuous histories of any beverage on this list. Used in traditional Chinese and Ayurvedic medicine for thousands of years primarily to settle the stomach and ease nausea. Its distinctive heat comes from a compound called gingerol, which is also responsible for much of the root's studied anti-inflammatory properties. And that same spicy warmth is why ginger shows up so often blended into other teas, particularly chai and various citrus or honey infusions, marketed for cold and flu relief. Unlike most items on this list, ginger tea isn't really defined by a single fixed preparation, since it ranges from a few thin slices of raw ginger steeped briefly to a much stronger, longer-simmered decoction, depending entirely on how intense you want that spicy kick to be. At the end of the day, tea covers an almost absurd amount of ground for something that starts with just hot water and plant matter. A shade-grown, stone-ground bowl of matcha and a hollowed gourd of yerba mate passed between friends are, in their own ways, both chasing the same basic goal, a warm, antioxidant-rich ritual that slows you down for a few minutes. That's really the through line connecting everything here, from a delicate white tea bud picked before it even opens to a pu'er cake aged for 20 years in a cellar in Yunnan. Every single one of these traditions developed independently, in completely different corners of the world, and somehow arrived at the same basic conclusion: steeping something in hot water and paying attention to it is worth the time. Whether it's a quick bag of black tea to get through a Monday morning or a slow, deliberate matcha ceremony on a day when you actually want to sit with your thoughts, tea offers both ends of that spectrum just as well as cheese does. People who go out of their way to explore beyond the same single tea bag they grew up with tend to notice something interesting. The world got a lot bigger, one cup at a time.